Viewers, welcome to the third in the series on God. This is the third edition of our series on God. In the first edition, we asked the question, is there God? And we're able to answer it philosophically. You see, without looking at the scriptures, because the scriptures say that there is God. So if we're going to answer the question of whether there is God or not, for people who don't believe in the scriptures, we have to go outside the scriptures. That's why we appealed to philosophy and logic. Philosophy, logic, and science. Science is logical. Philosophy deals with logic. So we're able to look at the evidence of the existence of God outside the scriptures. And then what did we discover? As a reminder, we discovered that there is order and interdependence in the universe. Science shows that everything in the universe is interdependent. In fact, there are basically three components of the universe: energy, space, and matter. Energy, space, and matter. These three things, apart from time, are all interdependent. Even the living things, living organisms are interdependent. As minute and complicated as organisms may be, they are interdependent. There's so much interdependence in the universe, there's so much order in the universe that these things cannot be ignored. Notice and remember that interdependence and order cannot be products of chance or coincidence. Order and interdependence are not products of chance, accident, or coincidence. Order and interdependence are always products of intelligence. That's why we concluded in the first edition that as long as there is order and interdependence in the universe must be a product of creation of an intelligent being. That's what we discussed in the first edition. So if this is the first edition you're watching, this is the first edition you're watching in the series, I want you to know that as long as there is order and interdependence in the universe, we have no other option than to believe and accept that the universe is a product of an intelligent being. The universe did not just happen. An intelligent being created the universe. Then we went to the second edition in the series. We're able to look at the main feature of this intelligent being. If there is God, what is the main feature that distinguishes him from every other being? And we discovered that the main feature that distinguishes God from every other being is self-existence. Self-existence. The creator of the universe must be self-existent. He must be someone or a being that was not made to exist, was not caused to exist. That's very important. We are looking outside the scriptures to find the existence of God, to find answers to philosophical questions that border on the existence of God. We are going outside scriptures to find answers to these questions. And so logically, And scientifically, we are, we have, we are, compelled to believe that the universe is a product of creation. And the creator must be an intelligent being. And this intelligent being must be existent rather. That means he was not caused to be, but he is the cause of every other thing. That means he is the source of of existence itself. Whereas himself was not made to exist. The self-existent one couldn't have been made to exist by any other force or being. Instead, he is the source of existence itself, the cause of existence. That's what we discussed in the second edition. Any being that cannot claim self-existence cannot be God. For instance, Jesus often stated that he lives by the Father, that he came from the Father, that he cannot do anything without the Father, that he does not know everything, that only the Father knows. He said over and over again that the Father is greater than him. The self-existent one cannot have a greater than him. The self-existent one cannot be called a son. A son means the word son means that this being called a son is a product of another being. It's an offspring of another being. The self-existent one cannot be cannot be a son to another being. It's not possible. That's why the self-existent one is called the Father. The Father, the source. The word Father means source. Is the source of life itself, is the source of existence itself. It can never be a son, which means a product or an offspring of another being. As long as Jesus claimed to be subservient, as long as Jesus claimed to be a son, as long as Jesus claimed to be dependent on the Father, it means Jesus is not self-existent. Jesus is not self-existent. And as long as he's not self-existent, he is not God Almighty, but a product of God Almighty. Then we're able to see in the second edition also that there's a way to know the true God. And the way to know the true God, and that's where we stopped the last time, the way to know the true God is in the ability of the true God to restore life. You see, the true God, the self-existent one, is the source of life. And the self-existent one cannot die. The self-existent one cannot die because he is life itself. He is the source of life. He cannot die. Now, for him to prove that he is the self-existent one and the source of life, he must be able to restore life to dead organisms at any time and space. For the proof that a being is a self-existent one, or God Almighty, the source and creator of the universe, that being must be able to restore life to dead organisms at will, and at any point in time and space. If you are not able to restore life at will, not by chance, but at will, if you're not able to restore life, you cannot be called the source of life. You are not the intelligent being that created the universe. You are not the self-existent one. So we're able to look at this matter logically and philosophically. If you are the source of life, you must be able to restore life. So a lot of religions claim that their God is the creator of the universe, that their God is the true God. So we have to ask them to prove that their God is a true God by giving evidence that the being that they call God is able to restore life. For if he is the source of life, he must be able to restore life at will and not by chance, at will. That is the distinguishing factor between the so-called gods on earth. If the God of your religion is not able to restore life at will, then he is not the source of life. And now when we look at all these religions that we have today, Buddhism, Shintoism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, and other world religions, even the African traditional religion, most of these religions promise you reincarnation. They don't promise you resurrection. African traditional religion does not promise religion and a resurrection. It only promises reincarnation. And so many other religions promise you reincarnation and not resurrection. Why? The reason is simple. Their gods cannot restore life. So they promise you reincarnation. Any religion that teaches reincarnation, religions like Ekanka and the rest, most of those Oriental religions can only promise you reincarnation. Every religion that promises reincarnation is false, because reincarnation is the easiest theory, or is the easiest way to explain away the inability of the supreme being that you worship to restore life to the dead. If it's the source of life, it should be able to restore life at will. And when it's restoring life, it must restore the life of the person that we see, with somebody we live together with, somebody we know here, somebody we know when he was born and we lived with, we know very well, and we know when he died. The supreme being, the intelligent being, the self-existent one, must be able to restore life to that being in our presence. It's not that the person has reincarnated and appeared as another being. No, that is not consistent with logic. Reincarnation is a false concept. It's not logical. Some other religions proclaim that their God can raise the dead. I don't want to mention some of these names of these religions, because some of them can be very violent. They believe that their God is the true God and is self-existent, and also is the source of life. But they cannot say that their God has ever raised the dead. You see, the issue of raising the dead is the key to knowing the true God. Because raising the dead simply means that this God can restore life to dead organisms. And the only being that can restore life to dead organisms is the source of life. Science cannot restore life to dead organisms. When an organism is dead, it is disposed of by science. They have no answer to death. So the creator, the source of life, is the only one that can restore life to dead organisms. And we are bold to announce to you, viewers, that it's only the God of Christians and the God of the Jews or Judaism, the God that Judaism and Christianity worship. That's the only God who has been able to prove beyond every reasonable doubt that he can restore life at will. And that's the promise that he gave to humanity. And he has been able to prove it by raising one man from the dead. God and Father of Jesus Christ, who is the source of life, the self-existent one, called Yahweh, raised Jesus Christ from the dead after 3 days and gave him life everlasting. This was not done secretly. Jesus was seen by more than 500 people after he rose from the dead. And even 2,000 years after his resurrection, he's still appearing to people. People are still seeing him, showing that Jesus is alive. People saw him, people knew him when he lived on earth. They touched him, they ate with him. They knew when he died, they saw when he was killed, he was buried. And they know when he was raised from the dead. They ate with him, they sat with him, they discussed with him, they saw his body, they saw the wounds he sustained when they killed him. They put their fingers into those places, they touched him, they ate with him. They knew that this was the same Jesus that died some days ago, and they have clear evidence that God Almighty, the source of life, raised him back to life without any form of ambiguity. They knew that Jesus was raised from the dead and is alive forevermore. And that is why we can say to you that Yahweh is the only true God and is the Father of Jesus Christ. And through Christ, we invite you to worship him as God. Thank you, viewers. Till come your way again in the third part of this series. I'm Joshua Nwokedi Izubara, pastor of the Ambassadors Church here in Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you.